Well, welcome back to another episode with us here on Redline TV. Today we're going to be talking about Calgary's real estate market here in March 2020. Today I want to talk about how the COVID-19 pandemic has shifted our real estate market from February here into March. That's what I want to dive into here with you today. Typically, I'd go through sales summary, the pricing picture, the inventory story, but those numbers aren't as fitting anymore. So I'm going to provide a summation of all the findings that I find, and more importantly, how it relates to you and why you should know. But in this time period, we've noticed that there's some specific questions that get asked of buyers, sellers, investors, and more than ever, homeowners are asking about what the pandemic is doing to affect their home values. So expect that throughout the video as well. And as always, if you don't want to miss any of our updates monthly and everything in between, please subscribe to our YouTube channel here so that you don't miss anything and may not have to wait till our next Facebook, social media, or email release. Typically, I'd be jumping right into a bunch of sales figures and stats from the entire month of March. But this time, I'm not going to spend virtually any time with you today on the data and those figures. They're just not as relevant. It's no secret that the world has completely changed in the last 30 days. And it's done so at a time when we're usually going through a seasonal uptick in our sales and our volume. But none of that really matters. Everything's changed, and I'm going to speak to the details. When we look at trends, when we look at data, generally, we have a bit of a playbook and we have a little bit of insight as to how things will adjust. But because of this scenario, along with our oil crisis, there is no playbook for this. All we can do is provide the info and give as much intel along the way to give you comfort with whatever decision you're looking to make. But let me first hit the facts. It's going to be quick. March started off incredibly strong, just like I spoke about in February and January. The figures were all trending forward and our market was starting to build momentum, unlike it had in many of the years prior. We were seeing increase in showing activity. We were seeing increase in sales numbers. We were seeing adjustments to the inventory that would lead to a more balanced scenario. We're also starting to see lower days on market. We were seeing lower months of supply. And it did look like we had pushed off any future price decline. It honestly was setting the stage for probably our best spring that we've had since the 2014 adjustment. But the world isn't on that trajectory anymore. So all of that good news and the data that supported it, all that it does is tell us the great position we were swinging into prior to all of the pandemic situations becoming in full-fledged and in front of us. But as I'll discuss, I do believe that all of that will be completely reset and we will be starting from a new place. We just don't know when and what that'll look like. There were some positives that even though we made a major shift through the mid part of March, that still ended up positioning our market in a better place in a few categories than we did see in the years prior. So I'll hit those quickly. We were seeing about 18% new listings coming to market. That's a good news story. Total inventory as a whole still ended up about 12% lower. Again, putting us in a better transitionary period to balance. Months of supply still finished a little bit quicker than the year before. And then days on market as well were about 15% lower than the years past. Those were our positives, despite half the month having a major shift occur. When the public state of emergency came out, I started to track the numbers on a daily basis because what we knew is a month over month look didn't matter as much anymore. We needed to provide day over day and worst case week over week comparisons to give our clients the insight they need to make the right decisions. Sales are showing to be down by about 60% in relation to a typical March and early April. New listings and total pending deals that are out there in the market as well, we are seeing a 60% reduction in those numbers too. And when I look at total inventory as we've adjusted into the pandemic, we are seeing a total of 15 to 20% total less inventory on the market, and that gap continues to climb. These sharp changes that have occurred I believe now are indicative of our new normal while we maintain this status quo with social distancing and the public safety concerns around our economy. Why I can say that is because we have the ability to track the total amount of showings that are occurring. So all across Alberta, there's a great tool that we get to use that shows what happened after the state of emergency was enacted. And we get to watch the last 3 weeks while we've been in basically self-quarantine. During that period, we've seen it drop heavily, and we've now found our baseline level of showings that are occurring on a daily basis. Showings are a leading indicator to future sales. So the fact that that has maintained itself now for 3 weeks is a good sign that the sales we're starting to see or will be the new normal as we glide through this for the foreseeable future. So the quick extra facts where we did see the declines as the back half of March saw our shift. Of course, we saw sales numbers coming down. Cumulative pending amount of deals that are under contract are down as well. And then the new listings to market continues to adjust to this new normal. So what I expect for April is an April unlike our city has ever seen before. The numbers that will show in April are pointing to a direction similar to a December, and even a smaller volume of transactions and homeowners buying and selling during that period. We're going to be watching this day by day, week by week, and there's a very good chance we'll be releasing additional information as we go through the month to give you the best information to make the right decisions for you. So stick with us. We'll be on the front lines of that information. Just follow along, and of course, you'll be well up to date. Okay, this set of advice is for the buyers out there. If during the COVID-19 pandemic, you're still one of those people that have a need to purchase, or you're making choices based on your family stability to move ahead with purchase, this set of advice is specifically geared for you. The first question I get asked a lot is, can I still buy? Well, the simple answer is absolutely yes, you can. Real estate's been deemed partially an essential service, which means if you've got into a contract and you're worried about can I close, the answer is absolutely yes. And you still can get into a buying decision today because lawyers, land transfer titles, mortgage lenders are all able to facilitate a transaction today with new updated safety protocols, social distancing protocols, and of course your agents have been provided directions on how we can navigate things safely for you. In wake of the stay-at-home initiative that we're all abiding to, it's a great time as a buyer to lean in onto the online resources. Us as agents are able to provide you extra bits of media, videos, tours, virtual tours, and we can request this information of the sellers to give you so much more information from the comfort and safety of your home. Showings are still allowed. You're still physically allowed to go through properties, but there are forms that sellers may ask you to provide about your COVID-19 exposure. And we also ask you to be extremely strict on which ones you go view and making sure you vetted them properly prior to going through somebody else's property during a time like this. So basically what I'm saying is the industry has evolved really quickly and gotten creative, from the realtors all the way through to the lawyers, to make sure that during this time you can still facilitate whatever buying transaction you need or want to do during this period. The next big question around buyers is, should I be buying right now? Well, I wish I had my crystal ball. I wish I could give you all that guidance, but what I can tell you is that's completely up to you and your financial situation. What we don't know is the effect of the oil price changes in the pandemic situation, how it's going to ultimately affect sales, inventory, and pricing. A few things I can tell you though, homes out there are still selling fast when priced well. We've seen homes sell in one day. We've seen homes go in multiple offers. We've seen homes that have been on the market for many, many months still go under contract. We've seen homeowners make price adjustments, and then a few weeks go by, and then an offer. So what we are seeing right now, despite the volume coming down, we are still seeing the variety we normally see in a normal market scenario. But as you'd expect, in that same breath, we are seeing many people put a pause on their buying needs. We are seeing that most people purchasing today are in a need to buy scenario versus a want to buy. Now there are exceptions, but that's where we've seen the adjustment. And from the research we've done so far with the people still going ahead and pulling the trigger, it's been mostly around that situation. The second scenario there is the people that have the means and the funds to make purchases today. Of course, they're going to do so in a stronger, motivated scenario where there's a likelihood they'll get a stronger deal. But that's the minority out there purchasing right now versus the majority who are in need of the purchase. So it is fair to say that the motivations of sellers now during this period, if they are remaining on the market or they're choosing to go to the market for the first time, is probably at an all-time high. Can you expect a better deal? Maybe, I don't know. Everybody's scenario is different. But the likelihood from the early indications is that the sales to list price ratios are dropping and spreading just a little bit in the favor of the buyer. So ultimately, will this amount to, if you purchase today, would you end up with a better COVID-19 price than what you could have got before or what you will get after? It is situation homeowner to homeowner, property to property. So if buying is the right time for you and your family, that's your decision. We can support it, and the ability to do so with the creative solutions is reality here today. This next section is my advice for sellers. This set of advice, again, is not focused on stats and data. This set of advice is for the sellers that are choosing to remain on the market or thinking of going to market during our pandemic era. The biggest question we're getting from our active sellers is, should I even be on the market right now? Again, full disclosure and transparency, this is a personal decision. We can't make that for you. It will be dependent on your financial picture, as well as your own personal family health and safety protocols and what you would like to have happen while we're in basically full lockdown situation. If you're comfortable with the protocols that can be put in place to allow people through your homes, it can be done, and it is being done today. But if you're not, that might be a moment to say, yeah, I might pause with many of the rest. What I can tell you is showings have really dropped off. They were pacing ahead of last year's schedule by a fair amount. But then the moment the state of emergency hit and we were told to no longer do open houses out there in the community, we saw a massive plunge in showings. Showings have baselined now, and it looks like this will be the level that we'll see while we're in the pandemic period. The showing activity we're seeing, if you're to compare it to a time you might have had a house on the market, it is very similar to what you would see on a Christmas Day or on a New Year's Day. So if you can expect, there's not a lot of showing. That doesn't mean, though, we don't have a lot of people still looking at your properties. Online views have really skyrocketed. Views on videos, views on virtual tours have really increased, but people aren't choosing to walk through as many properties and are checking them off their list quicker because they can consume a lot of this stuff about your home from the comfort and safety of their homes. This is seasonally the time of year that the most amount of buyers are actively looking, but they've put themselves on pause for the most part. So there is this series of pent up and growing demand where people are concerned to move ahead because of their financial situations and the health concerns. But the pent up demand is growing, and there are people just naturally during this part of the year that will be looking and waiting for the time when they feel comfortable to move ahead. What we do know, though, is if your home isn't on the market, it won't be viewed. So depending on your situation, you may want to make that call. The difference and the benefit right now is if your house is on the market, many people are not concerned about days on market, right? I think there's an empathy within the consumers and the buyers looking that if somebody's home is on the market or comes to the market now, that the days on market, if it takes a little bit longer to sell, are not going to affect your final sale price. So if you need to be on, and you want eyeballs viewing your properties today, you kind of have to be on the market to get that. If you don't need to be, then you may choose to wait. As I mentioned, the majority of people are choosing to pause. The minority are those that have already sold their home. They need to make a purchase, are transitioning from another city, sold their property, and are taking a job in Calgary. Somebody who's let go of their lease and has already made a decision to purchase. And there's a whole bunch of other situations. They're the minor part of the market, but they are the real buyers of today. Okay, the next question I get is, should I be listing my house now? There's not a lot of good reasons to list your property right now. But if you need to do so, we can, and we are developing extraordinary levels of media to be able to give you the best chance of success right now. There's a lot of tools that have been out there for a very long time that are now being adopted, and we've taken the lead on that as well to ensure if you need to go to market, that we'll be able to use creative solutions to get the people that are at stay at home to be able to see your home in its entirety. So when I get that question, typically I provide that information, tell you that it's completely possible to do so. But then it comes back, is this the right time for you? The whole sequence of events that's transpiring right now is reshaping our supply and demand altogether. The seasonal trends are out the window, the time of year, how we were positioned prior to all of this starting. It's become a virtual reset button to the entire marketplace. Where that lands, ultimately, when the protocols open up and we reopen the market, we don't know. But we do know the buyers and sellers today, during the 60 or 90 days that this transpires, they're not out purchasing other homes. So they have pent-up demand for future that will come. So there's no panic. Make your decisions by speaking to somebody that can provide you the specific information you need to know about your property type, about your price range, and all of those factors that matter to you. We're going to be on the front end as things adjust because the way we watch the market. We're going to be able to provide our clients that bit of information when it's time, and we can say it's giddy up. This section is focused advice for investors. As an investor, this set of stuff I want to talk to you about, it does mirror a lot from the buyers section, but as an investor, there's some major differences that I want to point out. The first question, and I get this often, we're fielding this all the time, is, am I going to get a better deal right now? The short answer is most likely, but I can't guarantee it. My data, my day-by-day analysis that I'm showing, that I'm tracking and trending for our agents here, is showing that the sales to list price ratio is growing a little bit. And as the weeks go on in our pandemic, that we are seeing slightly better deals happening as a whole. The other trend that is forming is that we're seeing better transaction counts happening in the lower price points. We've seen a large shift down to the $300,000 to $400,000 bands, away from the average bands, which is the $400,000 to $500,000. When we're selling more in that price range, what that means for investors is that's usually right in your sweet spot. That's where the cash flow investor tends to purchase. That's where we found great rent to price ratios. So if that's the part of the market that might be the most productive, it means you may not see as big of a deal as you might have thought or hoped for if you've got the cash capital and financial stability to purchase right now. But for you, for the investor, you and I know if a house is going to market today under these situations, there's a likely and a strong likelihood that the motivation's high. So if you're cash strong and you've got an ability to take advantage of the lower interest rates, there's a very good chance that during the pandemic you'll find or be able to find a deal that works a little bit better today than it might have even in the months to come or in the months past. The second question I get a lot from investors is, won't all of this make some major changes to the overall price? And are the prices going to be falling? The second part of that question is, well, are prices really going to drop? And if that's the case, if we're going to see a big drop in prices, should I just wait as an investor, maybe not take advantage of this scenario, and then wait it out for the future price drop? This is a tough one. This is the crystal ball question that I can't give you all the answers for. But as astute investors, what you know is prices don't just change because of sales volume. They change just like in any set of the economy with supply and demand adjustments. My personal analysis is not pointing to a big shift in our prices. Each day that's going on, as we get further into spring, we are seeing our inventory drop day by day in a typical part of the year where inventory was increasing significantly. 100 listings per day is our typical norm. Right now, it's about 40 when I trend it back for the last 2 weeks. There's a significant difference. And as I discussed before, at this time of the year, more buyers, we're thinking of buying. So back to supply and demand, if I'm telling you supply continues to fall away at a period of the year where people are told to pause, they're not pushing through on a purchase, there's a very good chance that as we approach 45 or 60 days and we flatten the curve, that the pent-up demand will potentially set the market into a position to rebound strongly. But we don't know, will it be like what we're hearing in China, or will it be a gradual uptick? I don't know. But that many people who are making pause have real life needs, real life transitions to make happen. It's very likely with the low inventory scenario we'll be at, that there'll be a lot of people rushing to market with not a whole lot to be looking at in relation to how many people were trying to purchase their homes. That's what gives me confidence to think the pricing's really not going to be pushed down. But hey, that's just one scenario. It could go the other way. So what we want and the advice we're providing is you need to be comfortable with your risk, the reward, and your personal financial situation to be able to take advantage, if you think, of the market that we currently sit in. And as always, as we do for buyers and sellers and not just investors, there's micro sections of the market that need to be analyzed for your specific buying needs. Make sure now more than ever, if you are considering, let's dig into that one-on-one so we can give you the appropriate advice. Okay, this time I opened up a new section called Advice for the Homeowner. Those of you that own your homes and just want to get a sense for what is the COVID-19 pandemic doing to my overall house prices. What I'm going to do here is echo a lot of the messaging that I've already spoken to in our other sections, but direct it specifically for you because we know you're not looking to buy or sell, but you're just very curious about what this might be doing to your overall equity and your house price. What I do know is in a big metro market like Calgary and area, that in order to adjust prices downward, there needs to be a lot of data points over a fairly long period of time. And when I say data points, I mean sales transactions that would be recorded to be the next set of comparable sales that we would adjust for. As I discussed earlier, we're calling this period kind of like a long and slightly slower December, with less sales happening in the 30, 45, 60, maybe 90-day period. It's not a long enough series to create a real trend line. What we also know is every year in December, we have a new December and then a January. December and January's numbers are always slower, sales have always dropped off, and prices generally are at its lowest for the year. So if we're in the pandemic period, and we're calling it a bit of a slow and maybe slower December, what we do know is we don't gauge the spring prices, the May prices on the upcoming year based on how well a December did. Their numbers, we look at them, but we just shrug our shoulders a little bit to say, yeah, that's just kind of how it goes. I see this period very similar. There will be this giant pause, this blip in the radar when you look back at the data for this segment of our time. The numbers of data points that are going to be recorded, they're not going to be enough to adjust us heavily with a massive price drop. Homeowners are resilient. There's a very few people out there selling that have the ability to drop their prices drastically or are forced to do so. Right now with mortgage deferrals, economic stimuluses, support for businesses that are coming out, in a typical situation, you'd see a ramp up in foreclosures, but right now we're not seeing that. If that's not happening and homeowners have the ability to defer, that's going to save our equities. That's going to save our home prices while we're in this slower section. So of course, time will tell, and we'll be there to report it month in and month out as the pandemic era continues to extend. Of course, along the way, if you've got specific concerns, if you've got specific questions about your personal situation, and you've got some other thoughts, I'd love to continue this conversation because I do believe it is a two-way conversation. None of us have been through this before. There's no playbook written for us to adjust from, and especially here in Calgary and Alberta, where we are affected by oil prices as well. Look to us in the future to keep reporting on the data, and let's continue to have a great conversation about how all of this will affect us and when we might be seeing ourselves come out on the other end. So thank you again for listening to this. I know this was a bit of a doozy. It's with a heavy heart and empathy to the situation that I look at this and try to provide as much advice as we can to make good decisions while we're all in this together. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay connected. All right, well, if you've made it this far, thank you. In future, if you don't want to miss any of this, you know what to do. Click on our link below so you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and get up to date on all the market updates and all the other fun videos we put out ongoing throughout the month. Thank you, and have a great day.